Did you know that every single year representatives from 47 different countries come together to meet and discuss how the human rights of everyone in the world can be respected, upheld, and fulfilled? But the big question is, why is the world still a mess? Hi fam, welcome to Curious Academy. My name is Untitled Chapter and I am your host. And I'm hoping that this platform and this channel specifically can help both you and me strengthen our capacity in terms of understanding how to do some programming work, some peer education engagements, facilitate some workshops, and engage in some advocacy platforms within the particular theme of sexual and reproductive health and rights, but also how we can strengthen each other's knowledge and capacity in terms of our understanding, our experiences, and our knowledge of our sexuality, sexual health, and our sexual lifestyle. Right now, I am going to be sharing with you about the Human Rights Council, which is one of the things that I had been grappling with since I started engaging in global advocacy work, which is something that I never had background experience on. I'm quite excited to see where this particular journey on this particular topic is going to take us, but at the same time, I am keen to learn from you as well, should you find yourself watching this video and maybe I may have missed something. This is a video just to basically equip someone who might be starting to work in regional and global advocacy, particularly within the Human Rights Council. And this particular video series is going to be touching on different human rights mechanisms that one can use in advocating for their specific area of work, whether that's GBV, whether that's sexual rights, reproductive health, water and sanitation, housing, anything and anything and anything. I am hoping that this is not just going to be a resource for a particular person, but any other young person that is starting to work in advocacy. And to be quite honest, I decided to do this because I myself did not necessarily have a lot of experience working particularly in advocacy, let alone in international diplomacy, spaces, intergovernmental relations, and all of those things. It all seemed quite, removed from me until I found myself thrown in the deep end. And usually this is what happens with us young people that are working in CSOs, right? We get different opportunities, different forms of funding sort of come through to us, and then you find yourself having to go and attend a Human Rights Council session for the first time, and maybe for you to be able to assess whether or not it's a space that you think you can work at and advocate. And you get there and it's like extremely intimidating. The language in itself is very different. The culture actually does not necessarily speak to you. And so I'm hoping that this particular video is going to at least say, hey, you're not alone. I'm here with you, and I'm hoping that we can kind of figure it out together, all right? I'm not going to go into detail. I'm just going to touch on the basics of what the Human Rights Council is, what some of the important things that are being discussed in particular spaces are, but also how and what are the possibilities, existing possibilities of how CSO can participate. But I won't necessarily dwell into that. This is just to give you a scope, what the basics of the institution are, and maybe what some of the possibilities and opportunities you might have, particularly if you're already someone that is finding themselves working in that space a bit more frequently. So the Human Rights Council is basically a United Nations intergovernmental body, and it is comprising of 47 member states. So the United Nations as an institution has 193 member states, and so the 47 member states that form part of the council are those that are within the United Nations member states, obviously. The purpose of the Human Rights Council is to address human rights violations that occur in different parts of the world. I mean, yes, it is arguable whether or not they're actually doing that. They address human rights violations that occur in very specific settings in specific countries. They deal with those particular issues, and it's a platform really where countries come together and actually engage on what the international standard of human rights and upholding human rights should look like. And obviously that is highly debatable because of the cultural differences, because of the different priorities that people have, because of the different priorities that we have, and that what we think is important might not necessarily be what the next person thinks is important. I mean, it hurts to say that, but that is the reality, and that is one of the reasons why it is important to actually engage with people in those particular spaces, including civil society, and forming alliances with other NGOs that work very, very well in those particular spaces. But we're going to get into how are these 47 member states elected. They are elected by the United Nations General Assembly. I do think that they probably apply to join the council, and then they're elected by the UNGA through a ballot paper vote, secret ballot, majority vote type of vibe. So each state is expected to serve for a term of 3 years. They've got an option to renew. I think it's like 1/3 of the total seating. Now, in terms of which countries are there and how they are selected, that is based on some way that they've calculated the equitable geographical differentiation situation. I think there's about 13 African states, 13 Asia Pacific states, 8 Latin American and Caribbean states, I think combined, 7 Western Europe states, and then 6 Eastern Europe states. What happens in each and every session is that there's annual discussions, there's integrated debates, there's reports from working groups and independent experts who go and do country visits to hear about different human rights situations and different human rights issues in particular countries where they've either been invited or they've requested to be invited. So there's a whole lot of participation, but one of the main things that happened there is the negotiation of the different resolutions. Now we're going to have a particular video that is specifically talking about what resolutions are. Basically, resolutions are, they're like, you know, a motion, a proposed motion of what we would say is a solution or is how we are resolving issues, right? So the resolutions is like different themes in different resolutions. Some are on youth and human rights, rights of the child, women's rights, so violence against women, discrimination against women, water and sanitation. I think so many different resolutions, and there's some resolutions that are specific to country situations, I think, such as the situation in Yemen. Those resolutions speak specifically to the current context and how that can be addressed in order for people's rights to not be violated. And I know all of these sound so horrible because I mean these things are happening and it's terrible, and we are here and we are talking about it, but maybe this is why we are here and we are talking about it, so that we can try and find solutions. Before the Human Rights Council existed, there was a Human Rights Commission, I think, and towards the end of 2005, I think, after many complaints that the Human Rights Commission was allowing countries who don't promote the human rights of their citizens to be members of the commission. So I think it was something like that. I mean, also we can still argue that are the countries that are there now actually promoting the human rights? I mean, but we're not there. But after that, the United Nations General Assembly created the Human Rights Council in 2006 in March, and then the first session took place in June 2006. So I do think that now we're sitting at about 39 or 40 general sessions, and those are the sessions that take place. So the 10-week that spreads throughout the year is divided into 3 sessions that take place between March, June and September. That's kind of what the Human Rights Council is about and is as an institution. They've got beautiful chambers in Geneva in Switzerland that look really expensive, with like a roof that's like very nicely decorated and whatever. Delivered statements there a couple of times. It had been very intimidating process at first, but the more you get to know about the processes and why you're actually supposed to deliver a statement, what you are responding to, and following the conversations that happen there, it kind of becomes easier and easier and easier, although the language is boring, so it takes a lot of research for you to do that. But at the end of the day, you can do it. I mean, I don't have a background in policy or in law or in anything. So how can civil society participate? Now, a lot of ways in which civil society participates. Firstly, unfortunately, the space is very much shrunk when it comes to civil society participation. Firstly, a lot of the times for civil society to be able to really fully occupy the spaces in the United Nations, they need to have what is called ECOSOC status, which basically approves these NGOs and kind of gives them the stamp to be able to deliver statements, host side events and all of that. So I work with one of the organizations that now have an ECOSOC status, which is the Youth Coalition. But before that, when I started working at the Human Rights Council, I was working with the Sexual Rights Initiative. Those are sort of some of the ways in which you can engage. The different annual discussions, the different report from independent experts and working groups, depending on the different countries or the different topics that they're working on. Civil society organizations and NGOs have the opportunity to deliver statements. So the interesting thing and the important thing to think about with NGOs that are familiar with that space, and especially those with ECOSOC status, because then you're helping each other amplify your voices by working together and collaborating on, you know, writing statements together, getting many other organizations in a particular region to sign on to statements that maybe the organization with the ECOSOC status can deliver. So it's kind of like working particularly in an international community to help each other to build momentum, to help each other to amplify each other's voices. In partnering with those organizations, when they do host side events events. They can invite you to come and speak about actual issues that affect you in your particular local context, that particular side event. And the nice thing about side events at the Human Rights Council, a lot of organizations that go to that extent of organizing side events make sure that they invite governments and mission staff, so that really the impact could reach those policymakers and it could reach those people that are working in those particular offices that we want to address our issues to. So there's that opportunity as well. And then there's the opportunity to submit a shadow report during the Universal Periodic Review, which we're still going to talk about a bit more later. It's a process that takes place where all United Nations member states review each other and the human rights settings in their particular countries. And civil society, now organizations, whether you've got ECOSOC status or not, you can write an actual narrative report talking about a human rights context in a particular issue, whether you want to talk about water, sanitation and housing, or sexual and reproductive health and rights, or maybe women's rights in like a broader context, or anything. You're able to submit a shadow report. And again, the important thing in those particular activities as well is to prioritize working collectively with other organizations, so that your report can come from a community within a particular local context. And so sometimes those things help. And then if you partner with organizations that are in that space, or you are able to find yourself in that space, engaging with other mission staffs and embassies, so that you can get them to be able to raise these issues to South Africa. So that's kind of how it works. It's not necessarily an easily accessible space, which is why, I mean, this I guess would be helpful to people who are already starting to find themselves infiltrating those particular spaces. But that's kind of the idea of how one may find themselves engaging at the Human Rights Council. But yeah, I'm hoping that the rest of the videos that are going to come after this one will be a bit more detailed in terms of the different processes, whether it's the special procedures, the independent experts and the working groups, the actual resolutions, the Universal Periodic Review, the treaty bodies. There's a lot for us to still unpack in this journey. I do hope that the rest of the series can help both you and I better understand this process. If there's anything that you would like for me to talk about in relation, and anything that you would like for me to cover in this particular series, do highlight for me what are some of the important things you'd like to know about the council down below. But also please do not forget to subscribe if you're interested in this content and some more content that I'm going to be producing for this particular channel. Thank you for staying on for this long and watching this video. See you next time.